Max power, baby. Ooh. She's working. Oh, what's up, guys? Welcome to another video, and I am shooting in my office for the first time ever, and I'm randomly wearing a jacket because I got my AC. All right, I'm chilling right now. We got the Beyond Riders clothing right now. This is a brand new jacket that just came out. It's a reflective line as well. This thing looks dope as heck. I'm gonna do another video on it. I just wanted to show it real quick, but while we put this bike together and go 72 volt, and I'll show you everything you gotta do, we're gonna remove this for right now. Oh, dang it, dang it. So here she is. This is my Ride 1 Up REVV1 DRT. Brand spanking new. I did a video on it the other day where I put 2 batteries on it, so that's why there's 2 battery rails right here. But in today's video, I'm gonna go through everything on how to do it to 72 volt. Now, I don't know if we're gonna get to everything in today's video, but I wanna show you some stuff that I've been working on and some stuff that's gonna fit because we're moving some stuff from the original street version to the dirt version. So it should be super easy. And if there's anything I don't show in this video, I do have more videos that is playing in the background that shows a lot more information, and it's gonna be the same setup. But I wanna show you that this bike is brand new. Look, I have a tag right here. I also have a tag right here, and the front headlight has plastic on it still. So it is a brand spanking new bike. I think there's like 18 miles on it, and I'm gonna start taking it apart. Now, the first thing that you're going to need to start this build is go on Amazon or anywhere else that you like shopping, like AliExpress, Alibaba, DHgate. You need a 3,000 or a 5,000 watt motor, and I opted to get the 3,000 watt motor just because the last 2 builds that I have done have been 5,000 watt motor kits. So I just decided, hey, let's just do this. And I like getting the kits because the kits come with the display, comes with the wheel, it comes with the controller, which the controller is way over there somewhere, I think, hidden, but we're not going to be using that one. We're actually going to be using the one that's already in my box, mounted up already, and I'll show you guys that later. But yeah, so you need a motor kit. I'll have links and everything down in the description. The next thing you're going to want to do, and I highly suggest, get a Shinko tire. This one is, if I'm not mistaken, it is 110/80/16. So it's a little bit taller than your standard one. Normally you would go with 110/70/16, but I like this one. I'm gonna see if it also fits. I did not mock any of this stuff up. You can also get these motor kits without this on it, so I'm actually wondering if this is gonna fit as well, so I gotta make sure. And if it doesn't, I'm gonna have to get a special tool to remove that, I think. But anyways, without further ado, what I wanna do right now is once you get your wheel all together, I want to take the rear one off of here, and I want to make sure that fits. And then once it does, we're going to have to remove some of the stuff on there, like the rotor and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to have to transfer it over to here. Here's one thing that you should do before you flip it upside down is you need to disconnect the motor cable because you're going to be taking the rear wheel off entire. So you're going to have to take off these 4 bolts that are on this side. There's also 4 on the other side. They're torque bits. I believe they're T25s. So take this off, disconnect the motor cable, and then fish it out this way and get rid of all the zip ties before you start removing the rear wheel. The cable you need to disconnect for the motor is gonna look like this. All you do is twist this, and then it will come right off and just slide it back. If you can see right in there, that's where that motor cable is gonna go through the frame. It's a little difficult pushing it through because the bends and everything like that, but I didn't have too much of an issue. If you do have a harder issue though, you can disconnect some of these plugs and move them out first and then fish them back through once you get the motor wire all the way out. And I got mine and it was pretty easy. It's funny getting down to that last zip tie that was holding the motor cables to the frame. It's not budging. You're gonna have to take this kickstand off because it is really locked in there. It looks like they put the kickstand on after they put this zip ties. Now I got my 21mm socket to take these axle bolts off. And that's all you need to remove those. And once these are removed, you just have to take the chain off and we should be free. Okay, I lied. There's one more bolt that you need to remove. It's an Allen number 6, and it's to remove the derailleur so you can remove the chain. That thing had so much tension, so be careful because it put a big old dent and a chip in my paint. But the good thing is this is underneath the bike, so not too worried about it, but be careful when removing that because it definitely has a lot of tension on it. And after that, it looks like everything's off. And there we go, it comes off beautifully, and that's all you got to do to remove the rear wheel. All right, so here comes the moment of truth to see if this will drop in. I'm not putting anything on it yet. No washers, no nothing, no brake rotor. I just want to see if it drops in and, oh wow, like butter. That thing dropped in there perfectly, and it spins beautifully as well. Now, by chance, if yours doesn't spin very well, these cables could be connected. So there's 3 phase wires. If one of them's connected like this, your motor will seize up. So make sure they're not connecting, then spin your motor and you should be good. But let me bring in here with the camera because this fitment looks really good without even any washers yet. So look at this side from the top. You're gonna see that there is enough clearance for that motor wire. Now we do have to put the brake rotor on this side. That's why there's those bolts right there. It looks like we need like one little washer right there in the middle between the frame and the motor, and it looks like that is going to line up perfectly with that rotor. But I do have spacers just in case I got to put spacers on here, and I'll show you what those look like later. If I jump over to this other side, you're going to see that this matches up super good. This is like perfect almost. The only thing I need to do is there is one washer that goes in there, like tucked in the middle. Once we get that in, I can make sure that this all mocks up and kind of bolts up together and make sure that it freely spins, and then I can flip over the bike and go over some other stuff. But so far, I'm actually very impressed with how well this thing is going together so far. And before anyone mentions, again, links will be down in the description, but I know a lot of people are gonna comment and ask this, and they're probably gonna ask this anyway when you see this video, but this is a 175 millimeter dropout. All right, so I mocked up the chain a little bit just to kind of get an idea if I was gonna be rocking a chain on this one compared to my street version. And it looks like I got it down pretty good, but I've noticed that I need some spacers because what's happening is this bolt right here is so long that it's coming in contact with this. So I need spacers on this side so this isn't so long coming out. So anyways, once I get spacers for that, I could probably use the chain. I gotta say it is pretty tight. So with the suspension, all that stuff, hopefully I won't have any issues like I did the last one. Also, if you look at the tire is definitely coming in contact with the chain. So we're gonna have a lot of rubbing if I do keep this chain. So I do think when I build this, I might leave the chain off for the time being, but we'll just see how it works down the road. Now the part that I always think takes the longest is removing this and putting it on the new setup and having it aligned to the actual brake pads that are on there. So that's why I have stuff like this. I have this type of spacer, so I'm gonna be using this. And then I also have some metal ones as well. So we're gonna see if we need more of these. I think I have like 5 or 6 of them. They're basically little shims, and we'll just put them on. It's gonna go on the new motor, and we're just gonna stack them up until we get the brake rotor aligned perfectly with our new wheel. So I did a little mock-up of the brake rotor on our new 3000 watt motor, and I used one of these, which is something that comes with these motors, and it's pretty thick. So I used one of those, and it looked like it was almost fitting on the bike, but it just needed a little bit more clearance. So this is where this one comes in. This is a very tiny shim. Get these on Amazon. Again, links down in the description. I think if I add one of these with this right here, I think it will drop right in there, and I'm gonna find out right now. But before I do that, I gotta take these 2 bolts off and do it all over again. So I dropped it in with the extra spacer, and I gotta say I could probably actually use one more spacer, but one thing I want to let you guys know is when you keep adding spacer after spacer, you're going to want longer bolts, because what happened to my last setup is if they are very short, they will back out even if you have Loctite, because it gets so hot. So just keep in mind, I'm not going to keep adding spacers. It is rubbing ever so slightly, but it's not that bad. I feel like once it starts moving and you get like 10 miles on it, I feel like it's gonna be even with the brake pad kind of wearing uneven on one side, but that's gonna be perfectly fine because I don't ride these bikes for thousands and thousands of miles. But if you really want to perfect it, you can keep adding spacers and then just get longer screws for the rotor and you should be good. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is when you do buy your motor kit, and I've already done this to my previous version, so I don't have to do this, but you're gonna notice that 2 washers don't look identical, and that's because I modified this one and I modified that one. Now they normally come looking like this, and you're gonna have to modify this to fit, because what happens is when you put this on here like that, it hits the frame. If you can see that right there, it hits the corner of this frame right here. You need to have this sit all the way flush back, and you can see, I guess, from this angle that it's kind of crooked. So what you have to do is come down here, and I'll show you, and I don't know exactly what side's what, but if I just come up here, it's not the perfect thing, but look, That fits right in there, nice and plush, and then you put a washer on top of that, and then you put your bolt. So I'll just do that right now just to show you guys what I'm talking about. So now I can put a flat washer right there on top of it, and then these ones will not fit. These are the ones that actually come off of the REVV1. You're gonna have to use the included ones that are on there, if that will focus. There you go. So then we could throw these on here. And they thread on pretty nice and decent. Make sure you torque these down. Probably gonna have to get my socket on there, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I do wanna briefly mention that technically you do wanna put torque plates on before you tighten the axles down, but just don't ride the bike until you get torque plates on there, or if you just want to test it out up and down the street real quick, but don't put it in max power mode, because you're going to want to put these on here before you put the nuts on. So once you get your torque plates lined up where you want them to be, you slide them on just like that, and then you're going to get a little clamp right here. And I like to put some tape or Velcro right here so I don't scratch up the frame, and then you put the nut on. But I'm not going to do that as of right now because I have a feeling I'm kind of just mocking this up right now, and I might have to take this all apart again. So I would suggest just mocking it up real quick and putting the torque plates on after. So the same thing we did with the other side, we do to this side. I'm gonna take my washer that I modified with a Dremel, and I gotta say this is a tedious part of the process because you gotta Dremel it, come back, see if it fits, Dremel it again, and this actually takes longer than doing the rotor, but the rotor is more time consuming too because you gotta take the wheel off and then you gotta take the rotor off and put more spacers behind the rotor. So anyways, once you get these modified, you only need to modify the ones that have the little tiny tabs on them. Once it slides onto the frame and it's clear, you're good to go. Since I already did it on my previous REV1, this made this process so much more easier. Then take your other washer that you have that you get in the kit and you can put it right over. Now you might actually have to modify this one because I notice it is a little tight, so I try to bend it into the corner and then slightly push it on. It does flatten the frame a little tiny bit, it's not that big of a deal, and then just get your nut and put that on. And again, we'll do those torque plates later in the video. But the next thing I need to do is come over to this side. We got to pull this motor cable as far away from the rotor as possible, and we're gonna bend it probably right there, and then we're gonna zip tie it all up to about right here, and then it's gonna drop down in this little hole, and then we'll be flipping the bike over. All right guys, so I flipped over the bike. This is the first time looking at it, and I gotta say it looks crazy. The rear looks really extended out, and I gotta say this is a longer bike than your standard traditional e-bike. I actually had to modify my bike rack just to fit it because it is a couple inches longer. But I gotta say that tire size that I went with, which is 110 80 by 16, fits this bike pretty well. I know you guys might be thinking like, oh, okay, it has like a big gap right there, but that's not too big of a deal. Honestly, you can't fit that big of a tire on here because look, that's pretty close already. But you could probably go a little taller if you wanted, if you could find anything taller than that, but I think that's a correct size right there. You gotta look back at it though, and the dirt tire does look like it sticks out a little taller, so I actually think the dirt tire might have a little bit of height to it compared to the rear, but we are turning this into a street bike with off-road comfortable suspension. Now I did put the cover back on this bike, and that's gonna hide all the stock wiring, all that stuff. It's also gonna allow us to put the cage on top. So we have 4 bolts right here, and the reason why you need this cage is because that's how we're getting the battery and the controller to power this rear motor. And I'm also going to use the stock battery on the top because I'm not gonna do any custom wiring on this because I don't plan on doing any wiring to all run off the 72-volt battery. I wanna just make it easy for you guys that just wanna customize a REV1 and just have fun with it without having to do some crazy wiring to get the switches work and the headlight working, the brake light working. We're just gonna use the stock power for all that stuff, and we're gonna have the power of the bike to go 50 miles an hour with the controller, battery, and the motor. So that's what I need to do next. I need to open that up and I need to show you guys what's inside of it and where you need to order these parts at. I'll have links again in the description for everything over here, and let's get to it. So this is the Ride One Up center storage cage. You can order it directly from Ride One Up where you'd order this bike as well, and it fits a lot of stuff. This is able to fit your controller and fit your custom battery that you're gonna put in there. You can also use this cage if you're not doing 72 volt to put a huge 52 volt battery in here and double or even triple your range of the stock configuration. But what I want to do is show you how I kind of have it mocked up inside here. You can see that Probably 80% of this cage is by the battery. This is a 72 volt, 34 amp hour battery, which you can get from Powerful Lithium. You might want to think about ordering this battery right away because there's probably going to be a wait time of a few weeks, if not months, because they're very busy. I do have an affiliate code to save some money on this battery, but I gotta say this is gonna be the most expensive part of this build. But without further ado though, I wanna show you how everything went in here. So let me take it out and show you. Now with the cage completely empty, other than the controller we have mounted on there, which is super simple to do. It's just 2 screws on the top. You don't have to drill any holes whatsoever. And you can see right up there that it just mounts up perfectly because the ends of the controller have the mounting spots to go there. So very simple to do. Normally you would put 4 screws on it, but honestly, this isn't going anywhere or moving. Now, what I want to get into so you guys understand this, to make it very simple, you're going to see that I do have a red and black cable connected to this controller, and that's because that's your power and ground. So when you order the battery from either Powerful Lithium or wherever you want to get your battery, they're going to send you a plug. Now, if you get it from Powerful Lithium, you're going to get this type of plug, and it's going to connect exactly to the plug on the battery. So this is what powers the battery to the controller. This other one is going to be for charging the battery. And to make this as simple as possible, once you do the black and the red, which the cable is super simple to do, you can't get that wrong. You do have some other colors in there. You're gonna see green, blue, and yellow. And all you have to do is come over to your motor cables, and you got yellow, green, and blue. And those cables are gonna go directly onto that controller using the provided screws, and everything will be perfectly fine. All these other cables that are on here, that one is for a USB connection. All the other ones, you could put an alarm system. You could also power your lights as well if you know how to do some custom wiring, but it does take a lot of time to go through this and understand what every single plug does. One of these other plugs though is going to go to the motor cable. This is the Hall sensor plug. That's one of your main connectors that's going to go to this one. If this one fails, you do have a backup one. So if you connect it to one of these and for some reason something's not working, try this other plug and you should be good to go. One of the main plugs that comes with your controller kit is going to be this one. Now you are going to have to modify the cage a little bit because you're going to have to fit this big connector in here. So I just cut a square out. You might want to make it a little bit cleaner so you don't have any issues or get any snags on the cable, because you definitely don't want to cut these. And all you basically do is just fish this in here as much as possible, and then the extra slack that you have once you get the cage mounted to the bike, just figure out where it goes. I think these cables on mine ended up being somewhere right here. It's going to be a little bit harder, I think, on this one because it's not an open thing, so we might have to remove the headlight and hide all the wires behind it. The next thing you have to modify on the center cage is this part. I just made a big cut on the back, and all you have to do is just bend it out of the way, and that's going to make the cables that are on the bike for that motor that are right there come into the basket. Once you have done all these modifications to the basket, now all we have to do is bolt it onto the bike. You can use the provided screws that come on the bike, or you can buy some separate ones. I do gotta say, I wish these were a little bit flatter because you definitely don't want to puncture this battery. But the good thing is you can go on Amazon or your local hardware store and you can get rolls of foam and then just cut them out the same size as the storage box, and you can just put them on the bottom, and that's what I did. You can see that underneath, you can see the screw marks and everything like that, but never had an issue with my last build, and I'm just gonna put a few layers of this and we should be good to go. And just like that, super simple, 4 bolts. I did add some washers, which I highly suggest when you pick up screws for this, you get washers as well, just to kind of cover that gap, because you don't want them to come loose or anything like that. It holds it more securely if you have washers on there. But yeah, it's super simple to put the storage cage on there, even if you're not doing 72 volt, and I'll show you how it looks on this side with the cage closed up. Looks super nice. It fits this bike, it fits the street version perfectly fine, no issues whatsoever. Even the controller bolts, you can cut those down if you need to, if it's touching, but the ones that I found at the hardware store fit perfectly fine right in there, and we have no issues. Next, I put the foam down at the bottom, so now we can put the battery on top. You might want to do a little bit better job than I did cutting the foam, but you get the idea. Before you drop the battery in here, keep in mind that's going to take up a lot of space, so we want to get our connections done first. So you want to take these motor wires that are sitting in the back right here that you fished through the bottom, you zip tied them all on the side of the bike. We're going to fish them through that hole that we made earlier on the cage, and you're gonna bring them through that spot right in there, and then we're gonna bolt it to the color codes that are up here. And it's really hard to do when that battery's in here, so let's get that done first. Okay, so I got my wires through from the motor in the rear, and I realized that these are too short. These will not reach this controller. As much as I pull them, they're not gonna reach. So the good thing is you do have adjustability on the controller mounting at the top. I can slide those all the way over, so I'm gonna have to loosen these up and slide it more over this way, and they should reach. All right, we got it all bolted together. Very easy. I'm glad we had the adjustability on the top to slide that controller all the way to the back. I honestly forgot how long this bike is compared to the original REVV1 from Ride One Up. It definitely made it a little bit more difficult. I'm glad we did not have to extend those phase wires or the cables or anything like that. That would have really sucked. So now that we have the cable coming up this way, if you can see it through the back, and it comes through the back of the cage, they are all connected right up there. The next thing you need to do is take your hall sensor, it's either this one or the other one, and hook it up to the controller. All right, we got that connected. The next cable I'm hooking up to the controller is gonna be the cables that go to the display and the throttle. The other two are for the brake levers, but I'm not gonna use the brake levers that came in the kit, so we don't have to worry about those two. We can just cover those up if we want. But yeah, I made that cut right here I told you to do earlier. Extend this all the way over here, and it basically just plugs into a connector right in here, and then you're good to go on that. The next thing is the battery, and I put the battery in. We're good to go. All you have to do is make that main connection right there, and the whole system is activated. All you have to do after that is hook up the throttle and the display, and we can get into testing it and making sure it all works. I gotta say, hooking up the battery, even though I've done a lot of these, is still one of the more scarier parts of doing these builds, because it just, you never know what's gonna happen when everything goes together. But without further ado, I'm just gonna do it and hope for the best, and should be good. Here we go. All right, and then I just like to tuck this underneath the controller so we get those wires out of the way. Same with this one right here. I just kind of tuck it out of the way, so then when you fold this up, it's less cables that are kind of get bunched up right here. One thing you got to pay attention to though on this build, I noticed that this battery was so big and long that I had to remove these screws. So I had to remove this one, but I left this one, and I also had to remove this one, and I left this one. Just because the battery on the inside, and you'll see what I mean when I flip this down, it will come in contact with that. See, that screw would go right there, and you don't want to puncture this battery. So you're not losing any functionality on the cage from closing. It might make it a little bit less durable and strong, I guess you could say, but you shouldn't have to worry about it. Now, going through the items that they give you, they do give you a full twist throttle. So if you want to use this, go ahead by all means. Not a huge fan of the twist throttles, but a lot of people are really going to be using this. I decided to use a thumb throttle, so I'm just tossing that. This is the USB cord, so if you want to plug it in so you can do your Bluetooth on this. And then let's see, you get an alarm system and another grip. So this is the alarm system. There's some torque plates in here, but we already had our own. And then these are the brake levers. So if you want to use their own brake levers for the brake functionality, you can do that. But then you have to wire them all up to this, and it's just a lot of work to do that. So I'm just gonna leave those. The one thing I do need out of all of this stuff is the main display, and I'm gonna get this hooked up right now. It does come with its own little power on and off switch, so let's get this hooked up. This is very simple to do. This is a green plug. This is the green plug coming out of the controller for that cable we connected. All you do is, I like to just spin it around until I find it clips, or you can look at the arrows on it, and it snaps on perfectly fine. The next thing we gotta do is the throttle. Again, very simple. If you want to use the one included with the kit, it works perfectly fine. But if you want something like this, you can go into the app and adjust this to work flawlessly. So I kind of have a feeling when I'm going to first hook this up, the throttle's not going to function correctly. We also have to do a motor calibration in the app as well, which I'll leave links down in the description so you can find that on your iPhone or Android. But this is simple. It's a yellow plug. Look for the yellow plug on here and plug it up. Look for the arrows, or just kind of spinning around until it pops in, and then boom, you're good to go. Now this is the part in the build where I would say have a bike stand or a motorcycle stand or somewhere where you can lift the back wheel off the ground, because I do want to fire it up, but I also need to make sure I don't accidentally blip the throttle or something starts spinning out of control. So I think what I'm going to have to do is lay this bike down and make sure the wheel's not touching the ground before we turn it on. All right, so we know this is not ideal, and I wouldn't suggest anyone doing it this way. This is just how I have it set up. I'm not at my house, I'm at my office. I don't have all the tools I need. But I just want to see what's going to happen without calibrating this thing. I did notice that it isn't moving as freely as it was earlier, but I know it's hooked up perfectly fine. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but without further ado, let's just turn this thing on. You can see it says MB power. Let me make sure I find the throttle switch. Got to make sure to hold this bike as well too, because you never know if something might just take off on you. But we are on 86% and assist number 1, and it should move. Let's see what happens. Nope, we are not getting any power whatsoever. Let's try this. I want to make sure to hold this bike. Nope, no power whatsoever. Now we're at 100% battery. Not exactly sure what that is, but let me disconnect this and see what happens. Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's a controller issue. That's why you should actually test this stuff before you put all of it together, but at least I didn't do all the wiring and zip tying all my stuff together and get it all bolted up and looking at it and be like, oh crap, this doesn't work. So all I have to do is basically take the cage out with the battery and then take that controller off. I'll probably mock up the other controller just to make sure it works first before I hook it all back up together. I think when we had the other issue when our bike died on the side of the street where the rotor screw came out of the rotor and it cut all the wires, I think it shorted something out in the controller. So you shouldn't have to worry about this, but you will also maybe run into some of your own issues. So if you ever do have a controller issue from the company when you bought it for whatever reason, you can contact them and tell them what's going on. I need to see what the green blinking light means, and then we'll figure out what it is. But for the time being, I'm gonna off camera switch out the controller to the 80 amp one that actually came in the kit because I wanted to use my 100 amp, and then we'll see if that works. All right, so this is the moment of truth. I switched out the controller. It's another brand new day, and yellow to yellow for the throttle. I'm using a thumb throttle. You can use that twist throttle if you want. Let's hook up this green to the green. That will power up our display. I gotta find a way of holding this bike to make sure it doesn't take off on me and burn up my carpet. You're gonna see it says MB power. Looks like it's turning on. We're on assist number 1, and our battery volt is at 79.9. It's almost at a full charge. It's probably about like 90% or so. So anyways, that should work. I don't wanna have too much power going through this, so without further ado, without messing anything up, make sure I hold this bike. Again, this is not ideal. You should have a bike stand, but it is what it is for now. Oh, there we go. All right. Everything looks like it's working good. Let's kind of turn up the power because that's only doing about 9 miles per hour. So let's turn this up. I'm gonna go up to 5. Let's try 5, baby. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can put this up here so you guys can maybe see this. Max power, baby. Ooh. She's working. Now the next thing you want to do once you get it all working and running, you're going to see this white plug right here. You're going to want to disconnect this. Once that cable is disconnected, come down to your display and you're going to see you're going to have an error 30H. That's totally fine. That's exactly what you need. Now you need to go onto your phone. You're going to want to download this app called MQCon. Once you get it on here, we're going to connect it to our controller, and you have to have that white cable disconnected or it will not connect. Once you do this, hit select Bluetooth devices. It's going to find your motor. All right, and it says lag voltage, but that's perfectly fine. I have regen on here because I did do this earlier. It's going to show your battery volts, engine, all this kind of stuff that you need, but the main thing you need to do is come over to this wrench icon, and then you're going to go to given current, put whatever you want in here. I normally do about, let's just say 40. Hit OK, go to run mode, go to test mode, and then hit hall test. And once you do that, you're gonna see that it's gonna run through the test. The motor is gonna ever so slightly move. Again, you can do more current if you want to and have it move a little bit faster, but I found like this works perfectly fine. This takes a few minutes to do, and then once it does this, it's calibrated, and then the motor should work perfectly fine. You'll know it's done because it says test OK, so what you want to do after that is you want to come up here and hit normal mode, and you want to take hall test off. Then you can exit the app, or you can go through some of the settings and you can adjust your throttle input, you can adjust the current, you can do all this stuff. It normally comes at the max level at the controller that you have the kit for, so you don't really have to come in here and do anything. The one thing I do like to do though is I do like to come into the flux and I enable that, and that gives us more top speed. So go as high as you can. On an 80 amp controller you can go up to 80. Oh, I'm sorry, I think you can only go up to 30. That's only what it's allowing me. So 30 for a 80 amp controller. I think on 100 amp you can go up to about 50 or so. After that's done, hook this cable back up together and flip the bike up, and then you can start doing your wiring. So because I plan on using the stock power with the stock unit and display, I'm gonna keep this on here, but if you're not gonna use the stock display, you can totally remove this and put the aftermarket display right in that place. I had to buy this adapter right here. This is gonna be on Amazon. Again, links in the description like always. This is gonna sit right here, and we're gonna put our secondary display right up here. And here's how that bar looks like connected to the bike. Here's how it looks from the other side. So the new display is on. It's kind of just dummied up there. It's actually not bolted. It looks a lot cleaner if this one is down here and then you move this one up here. That's just a lot more work. But right now it is not secure, but we're just gonna test it out in the time being. After you get that mocked up, you're gonna wanna plug that into that green cable I told you about. And then you have this cable right here that's gonna go to the throttle. But before we put the throttle on, we're gonna have to take all this stuff off. So I loosen this and I loosen this. I'm just gonna put the throttle right here for the time being, but what I did on my last build is I cut this because you're not going to use this throttle anymore. So what I did is I just cut it. You can order these on REVV1's website, I think for like 35 or 40 bucks, just in case you want to go back to original. But yeah, I'm just going to put it right over here for now, and hopefully it doesn't run into any of these buttons, just so we can test it out. So I got the throttle put on. It's kind of ghetto the way it looks right now because I need a full grip on this side, and I also did not put the original plug back on here, which I plan on doing. I'm just going to cut that throttle off so then we can use a stock power system and still have all our controls and everything like that. But this is just a ghetto way of hooking it up just to make sure everything's good so we can take it up and down the street. This is kind of how it looks like in the front. It's gonna look real clean when you like kind of zip tie all these wires together. And then there's some red cables right here. I told you these go to the brakes. We don't need those at all. We're just gonna use the stock brakes that came on the bike. And you can just hide all this stuff behind this cover. It's actually very nice. If you come over here, you can see the only cable we have coming out is right there. And everything is just gonna be tucked right in here. You're not even gonna see anything. It's gonna be all right in here. So it's gonna look really, really clean. Without further ado though, I need to make sure this works with the throttle and everything. And there we go. Looks like it's moving pretty good. Let's go up a little bit. Let's go up to 5. Oh yeah. This thing is showing about 54 or 55 free spinning, so I feel like we'll probably get around 45 to 47 on this thing. We'll just see. All right, here we go. Can't say I'm a little nervous because this just got put together, but it feels phenomenal. Now that front tire, I can still feel like it almost feels flat because that dirt tread that we have on here, but the back feels smooth. Especially with that street tire on, it feels so smooth right now. We're doing a casual 30 miles an hour with barely any throttle. Oh my God, what a hot day. It's 110 out here, so we're only taking this thing around the block just to test it out. I'm getting about 2,000 watts of power, and I'm just not gonna do anything crazy. Oh, I got regen on as well, so it's slowing me down. That's pretty nice. So that should save a little bit of battery out of here. But I have no clothing on whatsoever. I should have put the Beyond Rider's jacket on, but even in 112 degree weather, it is just, it's unbearable out here. So I got it in 3 right now. I'm not trying to do anything crazy, but that's full throttle in 3. And we're almost going as fast as a stock power. Oh yeah, it feels good. As soon as we could change this front tire though, it feels so much better. All right, let's come back this way and let's just bump it up to 5. But we're gonna be nice and gradual because there's no torque plates on this bike. So just keep in mind, guys, do not do what I'm doing, please. Make sure you have protective clothing on, gloves, helmet, everything, and do not ride it without torque plates. Please, just don't do it. I'm warning you guys, you want torque plates on this bike before you ride it. This is just for testing purposes only. I'm taking my chances and seeing what happens. So I want to try to see how fast this thing will go real quick. I want to gradually get into the power. Oh man, this is sketchy. This is sketchy with no clothes on. Woo. Oh, 50 miles an hour. That's what I'm talking about. Woo! Oh man, that was awesome. Oh, we are not definitely going on the main road. Nope, we're not doing that. Oh, that's awesome. Yes, this thing is badass. Now, I'm curious to know how the pedals are holding up, because the last time we had this issue, the pedals really had a problem, and that was like a little worrying. But let me start pedaling and see. All right. All right. The pedals are, of course, not gonna work with power because it's not hooked up or anything like that, but they seem like they're moving perfectly fine. Not too bad. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Let me pull over here real quick. I wanna see how the chain's looking. So if you guys are brand new to my channel, you would have realized that the last time I built the street version, we had a huge issue with the chain getting locked up and everything like that. And it looks like it's holding on pretty good. I left it loose because when this suspension comes down, this gets tighter, and you don't want it to lock up and get tight, because that's what happened on my last build. So looks like it's holding on pretty good, not too bad. Yeah, and I want to go around the block. I'm actually having fun with this thing, but I'm also a little worried because I should not be riding this thing without those torque plates. Oh, this is amazing. Yes. Oh, yes. If we're going against the wind, but I'm not full throttle. All this heat, though. Oh, my God. It is so bad out here. Regen feels good, too. I'm definitely going to leave regen on. I'm not having any issues with the brakes at all, either. I will say that is a little tiny bit spongy on the rear, but that's just because I did not get it lined up perfectly correct. So one side is touching more than the other, but it's still stopping regardless, like really good. Compared to the original street version, that one was only coming with 180 millimeter rotors. Now it actually comes with 203 millimeter rotors. So these are stopping good, no problem. Oh yeah, this is great. I'm afraid to go fast again without the gear, guys, so bear with me. We're gonna do a separate video on this thing when it's all dialed up and everything like that, but this is just a first look on how to build a REVV1 DRT 72 volt. Very simple, guys, very simple. All right, let's do one more run. One more run. All right, here we go. All right, I'm not full throttle. All right, now I'm full throttle. Full throttle, baby. Woo! 50, 51, 52. Woo! This is a bad boy right here. Bad boy. I did order the second tire for the front, so we'll have street tires all the way around. You could just leave the dirt tires on here if you want to take this off-roading and just have fun with it the way it is. You'll save a little bit of weight on that rotating wheel too, because these tires are super heavy. They're twice as heavy as a stock tire, so do what you guys want, but oh, this is a way more comfortable ride. What's up, brother? Well, there you guys go. The first test and ride of the 72 volt REVV1 DRT. I think this is going to be the first in the world of this being done on this model of a bike. And I gotta say, it's fantastic. So I really thank you guys for watching this video. And if it really helped you guys, please like the video so it gets out there in the world and helps everybody else out, because not just building this bike in general, but doing a 72 volt like I did on this bike is similar to most other e-bikes. You just have to figure out where you're gonna put the battery and the controller. So I really appreciate it if you guys do that, and subscribe if you guys wanna see more content on this, because I am definitely gonna fix up some of this stuff. I gotta add the torque plates on here. So there's still a little bit more stuff to do. We just gotta tidy some things up so the bike runs solid and we don't have any issues and we don't have to worry about anything. And plus, I have the other tire coming in about like a week and a half. So we're gonna do some more stuff on this. So I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys are the true MVPs. Camera just turned off and I was only out there for like 5 minutes. Crazy. All right, see you.